Alright guys, so before learning more about images or other Android components, we need to understand one important concept of Android, and that is the activity lifecycle. So we got a bunch of methods which gets called automatically during the life cycle of an activity, and we need to look these methods to understand how an activity really works. So this is our main activity, and let me just open this slide. There you go. So these are the methods, the important methods which gets called during an activity lifecycle. So your activity always starts with the onCreate method, then the onStart method gets called, and then the onResume method gets called. And after that your activity becomes visible. Now the user can see your screen. After executing these three methods, your activity becomes visible. Similarly, when your application goes out of the screen or your activity gets closed, then these three methods gets called sequentially. The first one, the on pause, then the on stop, and then on destroy. It is also possible that your application is visible. It's partially visible, and in that scenario, the on pause gets called, and after that, if the activity becomes active again, then the on resume method will get called. These other two methods will not be called because your activity has not destroyed yet. And in some scenarios, on restart method will also get called. So we will look all of these methods, and I will write all of these methods in the code to explain you how these methods get called and what are the use of these methods. So first let me just do one thing. Let me just clean this code here. Let me just comment all of this, cut it, and let me just paste it in the end so that you guys don't get confused with this code. So now what we have is just the main activity. So we know that we have some methods on create, on pause. We still don't know what these methods are. So let me just write or override all of these methods which are already present in the activity. So the first method is on create. So this is the on create method. Then the second method, not this one. Yeah. On create. Okay, so this was the method on create method. Then we have on start. Then we have on resume. So these three methods will get called one by one, and then we have on pause, on stop, and on destroy. Okay, so these three methods will be called when your activity is closing, okay, or is going in the background. And if you guys don't remember, we have one more line when we started here, that was set content view, and it was r dot layout dot main activity name. Alright, now we will learn one more thing here, that is called log. So we will write a couple of log statements here. Log dot information. The first thing that we will write here is the tag, and the second thing that we will write here is on create. So it says import the class. We will say import class. The shortcut is alt enter, and we just wrote this tag here. So we have to create this variable, and we can do this very easily by putting your cursor here and then pressing alt enter. So it says create constant field tag. So this is your tag. Tag string. And what we generally do as a standard, we write the activity name. So main activity dot class dot get simple name. This will give me the name of this activity, which is actually main activity. So instead of hard coding this, we just write this thing like this. So the first log is on create. Now after this we will write another log, again tag, and this time it is on start. Let me just copy these guys quickly, and this will be on resume, on pause, on stop, and on destroy. Okay, what we are doing here, we are overriding these methods and we are putting our code in these methods. Okay, in case we don't override these methods will still get called in the background in the main activity, in the action bar activity code. Okay, here in fragment activity and activity, this activity should have the onCreate method. You see that it has one onCreate method. So this method gets called. What we are doing, we are overriding this method in our code so that we can put our code inside the onCreate. So now let me just run this application and let's see what this log.i will do, and we will do a couple of more things with our activity. Okay, so let me just run my application here. Running my application, and here's my device. So it says Gradle build running, so it is building our project for now, and let's just wait. Okay, now it is showing me the device. Let's click OK. It is installing, and we can go to this Android tag here to see the different things. Okay, so this is our application, and you see the log here, main activity on create, on start, and on resume. These three methods get called and our application is started. Okay, on pause, on resume was called in between. So now what will happen if I just press back button, the other three methods which are being called is on pause, on stop, on destroy. Okay, and if I run my application once again, so this is my application. So you see on create, on start, on resume, and if I close it again, then the other three methods, on pause, on stop, on destroy, these methods are being called. So as soon as you start, the three methods are on create, on start, on resume. Then when you close, it is on pause, on stop, on destroy. Now there is one important thing. Let's say your application has started, on create, on start, on resume, and now what I will do, right now my device was on portrait, I will change it to auto rotate. So if I rotate my application, now my device is in landscape mode, and now you can see that on create, on start, on resume, then on pause, on stop, your activity was destroyed and it was recreated. If I rotate it again, you will be able to see the difference. If I rotate my device, so you see what happens, on pause, on stop, on destroy, and then again on create, on start, on resume. So what is happening here, your application gets created and these three methods, on create, on start, on resume, gets called one by one sequentially. And when your application gets destroyed, when your activity gets destroyed, sorry, then the on stop, on pause, on stop, and on destroy methods get called sequentially. Now let's do one more thing. Let's see what happens if I just press the home button. In that scenario, my application goes in the background. It does not get destroyed. So if I press the home button, let's see what happens. If I press the home button, on pause and on stop was called, right? But not on destroy because my activity was not destroyed. I can bring it back. I can press this button, click my application, and you see on stop, on start was called and on resume was called, not the on create option. On create method was called in that scenario. So now why should you care about these methods? There is one important thing that you can learn from this demo that we have done. We actually load our design in the onCreate method, and the reason is that if your application goes back in the background and then comes back again, it does not recreate it. You don't do the extra work again and again because your design is already loaded. You don't want to load your design again until unless you have made some changes in it, right? In the code, right? So on create method was not called because your UI was already created. Okay, it does not call this method. So you don't create your UI once again. You just execute the code from here on start and on resume. That is why I put this line set content view in the on create method and not in the on start and on resume method, right? And in case you want to check it out, that what will happen if you put your code in the on resume method, well, does it work or what will happen? Then in that scenario, what will happen, your application will run, it will work normally, you will see that it is working normally. But every time you are changing the landscape to portrait or portrait to landscape mode or anything coming up on your screen, you are recreating the design again and again. So you don't want to do that. That is why you put this line in the onCreate method. Basically the point is that you only want to do that work in the onCreate which you only want to do once, and especially when your application is creating the UI.